There are certain movies that I return to every year, it seems like, and I am a sucker for a trilogy or series. Think Indiana Jones, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. Like the swallows of Capistrano, I return again and again to these epic stories of good and evil, right and wrong, choices made with the times the characters have been given. And one of these series is The Hobbit. If you're familiar with, J.R. Tolkien wrote it, and so it is split into a trilogy. And if you remember the first movie, how it opens, it all sort of begins with a very unexpected party and journey. Bilbo Baggins, one of the, if not the main character, it is called The Hobbit after all, is enjoying a quiet evening in his comfortable hobbit hole. Everything in order when a stranger knocks. And then before he has time to process what is happening, 13 dwarves arrive at his door, loud, hungry, and entirely uninvited. They fill his once tidy home with laughter and dishes and crumbs and song. Now, Bilbo hadn't planned for guests. He hadn't signed up for an adventure. He was quite content to live a respectable, peaceful life. But by the end of the evening, something begins to stir in him. Some hidden courage, some buried longing, some small voice whispering, "There's more." And he says yes. Yes to the journey. Yes to the disruption. Yes to the unknown. Jesus in today's gospel tells a parable that begins much the same way, and I'm paraphrasing here. Keep your shoes on and the lights glowing, the way you do when you're expecting someone any minute, ready to open the door as soon as you hear their knock. Or to quote the entertainer RuPaul Charles, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. Thank you. Thank you. This is another kind of unexpected party. And the question we may ask is, when grace knocks, will we open the door? What Jesus is teaching in this moment is not about fear. He's not trying to scare his disciples into behaving. In fact, he begins this whole passage with a word of comfort that we have here. Fear not, little flock. God gives you the kingdom. Before any instruction, before any parable, before any warning, Jesus tells us that the kingdom is a gift. It's not earned, it's not seized, it's not given to the deserving, it is given out of love. In fact, just the act of being able to give us the kingdom is pleasing to God. To give peace, to give comfort, to give a time when there will be no more hunger or famine or war. And if that's true, then our duty is not to be afraid, but to be ready, to wait. Theologians call this kind of waiting apocalyptic waiting. Now, not in the Hollywood sense of catastrophe and destruction, but in the biblical sense of revealing. The Greek word is apocalypsis, which means revelation, disclosure, or unveiling. The unveiling of what matters most. And readiness in that sense isn't about knowing the schedule. It's about keeping the lamp of our life burning so that we may stay awake to the injustices we see and encounter every day. Jesus is inviting us into a kairos moment, a time pregnant with possibility. The Lutheran theologian Paul Tillich described kairos as a moment when eternity breaks into the ordinary, shaking us out of routine and creating a crisis in the depth of human existence. Not a disaster, but a turning point, a twist. And here's the twist in Jesus' parable. When the master comes and sees the servants ready, the roles will be turned upside down. He'll tie on the apron, have them rest at the table, and he will serve them himself. Now, this would have been scandalous to those first hearing this parable. In the Roman world, and one might dare say even now, those in power are content to be served by those deemed less than. In the Roman world, masters didn't serve slaves. Servants waited on the master, not the other way around. And yet this is what Jesus promises. He echoes what he will later say at the Last Supper, I am among you as one who serves. So this parable isn't about catching people in sin. It's about catching people in love, in faithfulness, in trust, in readiness for joy. I don't know about y'all, but have y'all ever waited for someone to come home late at night? I remember my own parents leaving the front porch light on, sort of like that Motel 6 commercial, if y'all remember that, the Tom Bodett from Motel 6, and Will leave the light on for you. Yes, great. So maybe you know a teenager or were a teenager at one point, maybe coming home late from their first solo trip, or a loved one maybe you were waiting for after a delayed flight. You stay up, right? You keep that lamp burning, the light on, your cell phone close, because you don't know exactly when, but you want to be ready. That's the spirit Jesus is talking about. It's not a posture of anxiety. It's a posture of expectant love. And yet we all know how hard it is to live that way. Let's be honest. We get tired. We lose focus. We forget the promise. The world trains us to live for what we can measure or own or control. But Jesus invites us to live for a kingdom that comes like a knock at the door, unexpected, but not uninvited. And that brings us back to Mr. Bilbo Baggins. When the knock came, he wasn't ready. The pantry was full, the rugs were clean, the schedule was empty. But grace showed up anyway. And the journey began not because he planned it, but because he opened the door. That's what Jesus is asking of us. To live lives that are interruptible, to keep our lamps lit and our hearts ready, to trust that the one who is coming brings not wrath, but bread, not shame, but service. And so we ask ourselves, what does readiness look like in our lives? Maybe it's listening more closely to someone we might have overlooked. Maybe it's offering forgiveness that we've withheld. Maybe it's a quiet act of generosity that no one will ever see. Maybe it's simply showing up again and again to a world that feels too tired, too broken, too far gone. Because the Master comes still. And when he knocks, he hopes to find us in the act of love. In our liturgy, and as we begin this month of prayer, we've been invited together to pray the prayer of St. Chrysostom, a prayer that fits almost perfectly into this gospel. You've given us grace at this time with one accord to make our common supplication to you. Fulfill now, O Lord, our desires and petitions as may be best for us, granting us in this world knowledge of your truth, and in the age to come, life everlasting. That's a prayer of those who wait with lamps lit. That's the hope of the servant who opens the door. That's the promise of the master who comes to serve. So let your lamp burn. Let your door stay open. Let your heart say yes, even to the unexpected party or journey. Amen.